Luetkemeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bofill, you had a lot of great examples of things that you felt we could do, improvements in the SBA program. Do you have any other ideas for what's existing in the program now? Do you have any other ideas or suggestions of things we could add to it that would be important or could make it more beneficial?
The goal for me being here today was to back the decision of the SBA to get into marine floor planning. The way it stands right now, as it's written, is that it's only good for 1 year. So we need to expand that to permanency. And the whole goal of the SBA loan-backed loans or guaranteed loans is to attract banks, regional banks, into the floor plan business. So and that will only be done with permanency and with more dollars without the $2 million cap that's on there presently. And then that'll benefit both the banking industry as well as the dealerships.
Okay. Mr. Waters?
I think there's, and I guess I'm not really sure the exact process that the SBA could do to solve the problem. I think there's part of the problem is that banks, there's a pendulum, and we've had an era of loose credit, and now we're in this new era of tight credit. And I think the pendulum has swung way too far in the it's overly tight, constricting all these markets. So I guess I'd love to see a way that the SBA could entice banks to try and push the pendulum back a little more center. There are good quality, credit quality companies that are being denied credit or being forced to pay too much money for their interest rates. Is there a way that SBA could create a program that would encourage banks to be a little more realistic? And, that was also mentioned in the preceding panel, how the regulators seem to be coming out and creating this environment, culture of the banks to be very, very concerned and afraid about everything they're doing. So some type of program that would encourage banks to become a little more reasonable.
Okay. Mr. Cohen?
Well, I keep coming back to the 2 points that are key to me, and one is the valuation of businesses and the treatment of goodwill, and just to give you an example of how that affects me as a small business person. If I want to acquire another outlet from another franchisee with the expectation that I can improve that business, I'm limited in how much SBA money I can borrow because my business is not capital intensive in terms of the investment going in. So if I have $100,000 or $150,000, you use the higher number, $150,000 in equipment, fixtures, and furniture on the books, but my cash flow, the cash flow of this business is $200,000, and then I'm going to use a multiple of cash flow to purchase or sell that business, which is very common in our sector. And the multiple in our sector would be 4 to 5. So you'd be conservative and say 4. This business is worth $800,000, but I have only 100 or 150,000 in assets on the book, so the book value is low. So I have a $650,000 difference that's going to go to goodwill. I would not be able to use the SBA right now to qualify for that. The other part of it that would be important to me would be increasing the loan amounts, because in franchise businesses we find that 50% of franchise businesses are owned by multi-unit franchisees. So I have an opportunity right now to acquire 2 other franchisees in my state, both of whom are ready to retire, neither of whom wants to expand their business. Now, I see great growth potential in both of those markets, but it will take my ability to borrow $3 to $5 million to do that. So I cannot qualify under current SBA standards to acquire those, to get those loans and get that assistance.
Thank you. Mr. Duffler?
So valuation based on the in high growth, high return businesses are difficult because the normal measures, cash flow or hard assets, just aren't in these businesses. Again, we're looking at negative cash flows for a number of years, and we're looking at intellectual property, which is very hard to value. So again, if SBA could align itself with private equity investors who have expertise in evaluating and valuing those assets, and those assets are intellectual property and clinical programs, that would be a great benefit for the biotech industry.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Short.